If living in America got you pissed, then pump your fist like this. If you ever had handcuffs on your wrist, then pump your fist like this. If you hate seeing black people get this, then pump your fist like this. If you're tired of being caught up in that twist, then pump your fist like this. Compassion. Nobody's fun. Love, celebration, compassion. Deep, soul don't sleep, peace, love, unity.
Long ago, before the people were settled and in their ways, creation breathed life and spoke with wisdom to all the world and all its relations. Brothers and sisters, it is my desire to create man, and as so, it is my wish to hide something from man until they are truly prepared and ready for it. Brothers and sisters, it is my desire to hide from man the realization that he creates his own reality. All the animals applauded creation for its wisdom, and all clamored to aid the Creator in his intention. The eagle said, "Give it to me. I will take it to the moon."
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff, we have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
But the Creator, with wisdom, said, no. One day they will go there, and they will find it.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The salmon said, give it to me, and I will bury it on the bottom of the ocean. But the Creator, with wisdom, said, no, they will go there too. The buffalo said, give it to me, and I will bury it on the Great Plains and in the land. But the Creator, with wisdom, said, no, for they will cut into the skin of the earth and find it even there. Finally, Grandmother, who lives in the breast of Mother Earth, and who has no physical eyes, but sees with spiritual eyes, said, put it inside them. And the Creator said, it is done.
Took a lot to get out here, man. See, I'm gonna take.
Over the past 400 years, the James River has experienced little change. A map published soon after 1607 shows only a slight difference in topography when compared to an aerial map from today. The inhabitants of the land surrounding the river, however, have changed drastically. Long before this map was drawn, the Powhatan lived here and relied on the natural resources of the river for transportation, food, and its streams of fresh water. It was important to the Powhatan to be near a river. Much of their life depended on it. Many lived along what is today called the James River. The native peoples referred to rivers as Yeokanta, and the James was then named the Powhatan Fleuve. The Powhatan stayed close to the James River, though its main body was too brackish to drink. The river was a source of transportation and food. The Powhatan inhabited the areas of Virginia from the Tidewater to fall-line regions. There were other tribes around them, maintaining a distance of about 3 days' travel. The Susquehannocks, Massawomacs, and the Patawomecs to the north. The Monacans and Manohoacs to the west, and the Chowan to the south, as well as many other smaller tribes. The Powhatan chiefdom had originally been smaller groups, but were united under a central chief called the Mamanatowick by the late 1500s. By the middle of the 16th century, Chief Powhatan, named at birth Wahon Seneca, had come to power. But how? Powhatan's mother was born at Pamunkey in what is today King William County. His father was from the town of Powhatan at the falls of the James River. Some have speculated a series of chiefly marriages between the river communities gave rise to the original Powhatan Pamunkey chiefdom to include the geography that is today considered the Greater Richmond area. Wahun Seneca inherited his position of power through his mother's Pamunkey lineage and became chief about 1565. In some societies, lineage descent determines power, that a particular family holds the leadership of a community. For the matrilineal Powhatan, chiefly power always moved from mother to child, and then passing to each sibling according to birth order. When all siblings were dead, the oldest daughter's child would receive power through the matriline. The Powhatan spoke Algonquian, a language family widespread in North America, but did not have a written language, so messages had to be sent in person. Travel might be done on foot, but the quickest way to get anywhere was on the river. Weloances, or village and lineage headmen, traditionally governed local communities, but offered tribute to the great Powhatan. Some Weloances were appointed. Weloances would send news as well as goods to Powhatan. Through tribute, all parts of the chiefdom showed their loyalty to their Mamanatowic. Some goods might come from other tribes or regions, making them valuable for their scarcity. When Powhatan was home, he would have taken part in daily life. That life began every day with the river. Each morning, all the Powhatan Indian men would go down to the river to bathe, regardless of age or time of year. Paint, made of natural dyes and bear grease, would be removed and reapplied. Villages were kept near the river. They wanted their source for fresh water, riverine resources, and travel nearby. Women would build the yehakens, or homes, sometimes called longhouses, from saplings and rushes cut by the river. The woven mats would cover the house and provide shelter. These homes were sturdy, but could be torn down and moved in a matter of days. This allowed the Powhatan Indians the flexibility to plant their crops in fertile soil and move as needed when fields were exhausted. The men's space was in the forest, hunting or making war. When men returned from the hunt, they were entering women's territory. Powhatan men were often away from home. Bringing food to the village was their responsibility. One source of abundant food was the river. Fishermen would come home with oysters, mussels, fish, and birds. Land animals depended on the river for water too, so there were many animals to hunt. The Powhatan men were very skilled with bows and arrows. The woods provided a strong hunter with bear, deer, rabbit, and many other animals. This reliance on the land meant that the Powhatan diet changed in substance and amount depending on the season. Once the animal was brought to the village, the job of processing it fell to the women. The tendons, brains, bones, hooves, and skin would all be used. Hides could be made into leather using the animal's own brain. A chemical called tannin kept the skin from rotting. The result would be wearable, useful leather. Any extra meat would be smoked to preserve it. In winter, or Papanao, the Powhatan Indians would eat dried or smoked meat and crops that had been preserved earlier that year. In 1611, English colonists came up the river. Men from Jamestown, suffering from continual illness and hunger, looked for a new site to settle, ultimately creating Henricus. In the land, they found exactly what Native Americans had found hundreds of years before: fresh water, plentiful land, and natural protection. Only one thing stood in their way. The Powhatan's ability to live on the land's natural resources was very impressive to the Jamestown and Henricus colonists. Chief Powhatan did not worry over the few Englishmen, or Tassan Tassas, that arrived in the villages to trade, or who had settled on small pieces of uninhabited land. He worried more over the Monacans, who acted occasionally as partners in trade, but more often as enemies. Initially, Powhatan may have thought that the English were temporary visitors, potential allies, and useful trading partners. Around the time Jamestown was being founded, a Powhatan priest made a prediction, which was retold by Englishman William Strachey in his History of Travel. From the Chesapeake Bay, a nation should arise, which should dissolve and give end to his empire. A second prophecy said that twice they should give overthrow and dishearten the attempters and such strangers as should invade their territories or labor to settle a plantation amongst them. But the third time, they themselves should fall into their subjection and under their conquest. To avert the first prediction, Powhatan crushed the Chesapeake, Kecoughtan, and Piankatank Indians. The second prediction was thought to be about the Monacans, but came true if applied to the outsiders, the Tassan Tassas, the English. The English and the Powhatan Indians did coexist, but their relationship could always turn tense. They had common qualities that helped cross-cultural understanding, but also strong characters of difference. The Powhatan had their chief. The English had their king. The king depended on his colony's governors, the chief on his werowances. The English were monotheistic, meaning they worshipped one supreme deity. The English worshipped God using a Bible and personal prayer. However, the Powhatan worshipped multiple spirit forces through the guidance of their priests, including two named Ahon and Okios. The English erected their forts and struggled to succeed in this new world. Their houses were able to withstand Virginia's weather, but they relied heavily on goods they received. These goods arrived on ships from England and from local tribes. They brought goods that seemed wonderful to the Indians, goods that enhanced status and trading opportunities, though they were not necessary. What the Indians offered was even more wonderful: food. The Indians traded for things they wanted, but the English traded for things they needed. Some items, such as animal pelts, would be traded with the hope of selling them in England, but with unreliable ships and harsh winters, the English needed Powhatan corn and meat to survive. The two cultures occasionally mingled. English men or boys lived with the Powhatan in order to learn their language and act as interpreters, and Powhatan boys were sent to the English. Prisoners were taken and sometimes assimilated into the new culture. One such prisoner was Pocahontas, daughter of Chief Powhatan. She was forced to live among the English and learned the language and customs. Pocahontas converted to Christianity and took the name Rebecca. She ultimately married the planter John Rolfe and visited England, where she died and was buried. Pocahontas became a popular connection between the two cultures. The English planted their settlements, expanded their croplands, particularly that of tobacco, and stayed, adding more people as ships kept arriving. Their continued growth edged the Powhatan out of their own territory. The Powhatan eventually realized fighting back was their only option. In 1618, Chief Powhatan died. His brother, Opichipam, became the new chief, but his brother, Opi Chankano, soon stepped into the role. Opi Chankano actively fought against the English encroachment, starting in March of 1622 with a great assault that decimated the colonists. War raged for a decade thereafter. The people of the river continued to move, trying to live away from the English, but their lifestyle required land and access to the river's resources. The English made that riverside land unavailable and populated it quickly, and Powhatan communities were forced to adapt. The Powhatan village of Erohatek, located near where Richmond is today, disappeared from historical documents shortly after the English arrived and established Henricus. Little is known about where they went, but they likely merged with the neighboring communities. The 1600s, a time of exploration and colonization of Virginia for the English, saw the end of Native Americans' isolation from Europe. Disease, warfare, and enslavement followed, destroying indigenous people and their societies. Of the Powhatan people that survived, all were eventually assimilated into the English colony. The mighty James River that had brought them so many resources was also the waterway that the colonization of English-speaking America followed. Remarkably, even through 400 years of assimilation and changes, descendant communities of the Powhatan Indians remain today and are part of Virginia society. There are 2 reservations on the Mattaponi and Pamunkey Rivers, and the Commonwealth is home to 9 other state-recognized tribes.
I love this river. It is the longest free-flowing river on the East Coast, about 195 miles from the Blue Ridge Mountains all the way down to the bay. It's great for fishermen. It's great for people that want to come out here for recreation. It's got something for everybody, and Fredericksburg is kind of right in the central hub.
The city of Fredericksburg acquired about 5,000 acres and 90 miles of waterfront back in 1969. In summertime, from Mott's boat slip, which is about maybe 5 miles upstream, down to city docks, we'll see tens of thousands of users each season.
We do river rescues pretty often. On average, we rescue about a little over 30 people a year, and that can be anywhere from 20 to 50 water rescue calls per season. Those areas that are easily accessible are right here in the city of Fredericksburg. When we get west of 95, those areas are very difficult to try and locate somebody. The river has basically a heavily wooded area on both sides of it when you get west of 95, and oftentimes when we get calls out there, it'll take us a long time to locate somebody.
A typical rescue is 4 to 8 hours. which is unacceptable for a person in distress, but then also the first responders in this heat, in neoprene, walking around for 4 to 8 hours through the woods trying to find these people. That's unacceptable.
Officer Young and I got together and met, and kind of in our discussions, you know, we both kind of came to the conclusion that some areas of the river were very difficult for us to locate people. And because of that, you know, we wanted to come up with a way to maybe make that a little easier. The Friends of the Rappahannock puts out this water trail guide, which is great. It's actually a really great map of the river. And it gives you the actual miles of the Rappahannock itself.
John said, you know, there's this great mile marker book and it shows you where you're at, but there's nothing on the shoreline that corresponds to this book.
So our idea was to put mile marker signs on the river itself.
Subconsciously, when you pass a mile marker sign, put it in the back of your head, I just passed the 138, I just passed the 137. That way when things go bad, and they can very quickly, know where you're at.
So if you're traveling downstream, all the signs are going to be placed on river left, approximately 10 to 12 feet up in the air. Basically just keep track of where you are, and you know, you should be able to locate yourself pretty easily. Hopefully, if we save one life, you know, by putting these signs out, then the whole program's worth it.
And now, another moment in the history of Stafford County.
The English colonists who arrived at Jamestown in May of 1607 are historically depicted as a tough and courageous community of settlers who were able to survive because of their strong will and determination. But in truth, their survival was due in no small part to one thing: these people. The Potawatomi Indians were the earliest inhabitants of Stafford County and can trace their lives here to somewhere around 1300 AD when they settled along the south bank of the Potomac River. That's roughly the same time as the last Crusaders were returning to Europe. One of the more prominent Potawatomi settlements in Stafford was on Potomac Creek at Indian Point, not far from Marlborough Point. That village was occupied more or less continuously until just before the arrival of the English at Jamestown. It was then that the Potawatomi Indians moved to a new site not far away in the 1500s. That was the village John Smith visited, and it was near where Pocahontas was kidnapped, but its exact location remains a mystery. Nevertheless, the older site at Indian Point still remains until this day. The Potawatomi spoke an Eastern Algonquin language. Some modern-day members of the tribe still speak this language.
Wingapo Cheschame, where once, Krenapo, near Nokomis,
near Tisimacog,
near Opaque, Miquon,
near Natashno, Peru.
Kina.
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 The language did not survive because of the annihilation that occurred in 1666. The colonial governor gave the order to wipe out those pesky Indians, and it was true, the Indians were causing a lot of trouble, but because their land was being taken. But our tribe was always helpful and got the colonists to adjust to and adapt to this very foreign environment to them. And in doing that, we taught them how to plant, how to fish and hunt, and how to survive on this land. In doing that, words from our Potomac language worked their way into the English language.
Wingapa, Wings, Natasha Peru,
Wings Kiera Chismakog,
Sequilum, Sakir,
Wingan, Sakir,
Manushan,
Ana.
Now, I call this the Potomac language. Many of the academicians will call it the Powhatan language. But by virtue of the fact that we were non-nomadic and lived on the river over here and traded with everybody, all other Indian tribes, white settlers, so on and so on, we had to learn a language that the other people understood. So it was probably a mixture of several languages.
In the late 1500s, the Potomacs became part of a far larger political organization called the Powhatan Confederacy. The Confederacy included 30 tribes and, according to Thomas Jefferson's Notes on Virginia, covered an area of roughly 8,000 square miles. The buildings in the Potomac settlement were sturdy longhouses built on heavy timbers. These dwellings were 50 to 60 feet long and 26 feet wide. Other buildings, equally rugged, were circular. They were covered in animal hides for protection against the elements.
Our villages were in palisades, which were kind of like forts, you know, and I'm sure, you know, maybe, you know, later years when they did build forts, they built them on, you know, with the idea of what we had. We do have some pictures that are available over there that would show you exactly, you know, what our villages, you know, look like. Everything was built around. It was built on the water. You know, we of course were water people, and you know they were built, you know, as close to the water as they possibly could, you know, do things for traveling purposes. You know, going from village to village, fishing, you know, that type of thing, and you know, trading with other villages. You know.
One of the unique characteristics of a Potomac town was its fortifications. Just like many towns in Europe, it had a wall. In this case, it was a wooden palisade with a moat. Yes, a moat. Being so accessible by water, and with potential raiders from other tribes a constant threat, the Potomacs invested heavily in defense. The economy of the Potomacs was based on agriculture. In other words, they were farmers. Many people are surprised by this, but there are extensive references in several histories to large corn crops. Captain John Smith, for example, traded with the Potomac for their corn. The Potomacs followed a seasonal pattern of hunting and gathering, but in winter, when their gardens were dormant and fishing was less productive, they moved into the interior and relied on stored food as well as whatever game they could procure. Waterways were viewed as a source of food and transportation.
Right. Well, I'm sure they, you know, not being familiar with the, you know, with the land, you know, the type of land and everything. The areas that we basically had our villages in were marsh and wetlands, so they weren't familiar with growing. We grew our own, you know, food to eat. You know, hunted, fish, and of course, you know, when we did, you know, kill game, we used every bit of it. We used the hides for clothing, for covering, you know, blankets, that type of thing. When we fished, and we used the bones for sewing instruments, you know, that type of thing.
Corn or maize, introduced into the region from Mexico, grew well in Virginia. It fulfilled the Indians' nutritional needs, enabling them to thrive and become more populous. Captain John Smith observed that Indian men spent most of their time hunting, fishing, and engaging in wars, while the women and children made mats, baskets, and pottery, and raised the crops upon which their villages depended. He described the Potomacs as generally tall and straight, with black hair and dusky complexions, and noted that the men rarely had beards. He said that the natives were exceptionally strong and agile and tolerated even the worst weather. But there are many subtle and important differences between the Indians and the Europeans. The Potomacs considered land merely a part of the earth, like the sky, water, and the air, and therefore open to use by everyone. So the European concept of owning land was foreign to them. The two cultures also have vastly different views of religion. The Potomacs, while open to the idea of a Christian deity, were reluctant to renounce their own gods. Although both cultures viewed accumulated wealth as a symbol of social status, they had a much different concept of inheritance. For example, Potomacs passed their birthright through the female line rather than the male. Archaeological evidence reveals very little of the early Potomac people. Excavations in the 1930s unearthed 134 individuals now kept in the Smithsonian Institution. But other than that, little is known beyond what is revealed in English histories. The Potomac tribe, despite cruel treatment by the English colonists, still exists today. Members of that tribe live and work among and alongside the citizens of Stafford County every day. The state has recognized the Potomacs as an official Indian tribe in Virginia, but as of the end of 2013, they have received no federal recognition. Still, had it not been for the compassionate outreach of the Potomacs to the settlers at Jamestown, the history of that fated colony would be very different, and so would the history of Stafford County. And there you have it, in a Stafford Minute.
Yo ho ho! Ship ahoy! There be treasure!
TGF on beat.
Now look at this.
Yikes, I see alligators chewing my pizza. Those few words can help you, boys and girls, remember the names of the language groups and the names of the tribes in Virginia. The Native American tribes in Virginia, starting from the west going towards the east, include the Iroquoian, Siouan, and Algonquian language groups, and it includes the Cherokee, Monacan, and Powhatan tribe names. So I see alligators chewing my pizza is what you need to remember to help you remember those important words for our test on Tuesday. Thanks. Bye.
Wingapo, this is Tasha She, and this is me attempting to start a series on reviving the Powhatan language, which is a part of the Bronto Eastern Algonquian language groups. This language has been dead officially for probably 100 years. Now, there were secretly some fluid speakers still living, and the last one probably died probably 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Now, the accent is still there, and myself and, other family members, other people who live in the area where these tribes live, we still have that accent. We say it's a southern accent, but it's an indigenous accent. It's an Algonquian, Anishinaabe accent. So that's what it is. And, if you're from the area and you start to try to learn this language and speak it, you will realize that that accent that you're using is a part of that language. Like, you will have to kind of interject that accent. You see how I said it? The accent. You interject that on there, and that's that give you the proper way to say it in that language. For example, you look at the word Powhatan. It looks like Powhatan. Tan. It looks like Powhatan, but it's Powhatan. Powhatan. You see? And that's that twang, that I don't know what you call that, but it's something that I always had and other people in the area has, and that's where it comes from. So we're going to start the series on something simple. We're going to start with the numerals 1 through 10 in the Powhatan language, not Powhatan. Powhatan language, like Yucatan, Powhatan. And, that right there, I see the similarities in some of the Nathal. Excuse me, I'm trying to pronounce it right. In some of the Nathal language group, similarities to this Powhatan language. Now, Powhatan Algonquian is a little different than other groups. It's different from the Nanticoke dialect. It's different from the Delaware Lenape dialect. It's different from the Wampanoag dialect, and so on, Cree, and so on and so on. And that has to do with our migrations and certain groups who had more people. Like the Powhatan is the empire. It's Powhatan, Ajakan was a country. So we had probably 32 different major tribes that were a part of our confederation, and that's why you had the different changes in dialects in that Proto-Eastern Algonquian language. So we're going to get into the numerals 1 through 10. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now. Click that notification button so you can get the notifications, because I'm going to be putting out more videos on this language that not many people are even thinking about anymore. It's some people that want to learn this language and there's nowhere that they can go. So I'm just trying to put that information out there. So stay tuned. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now and click that little bell to be part of the notification clan and get notifications. I'm going to be having more videos on this so-called extinct language, and we're going to bring it back. We're going to resurrect. Stay tuned. So grab your pen and your pad and let's start digging, turtles. One. Neku. 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 Two. Neens. 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 Three. Nas. 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 Four. Yeo. 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 Five. Parenisk. 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 Six. Kama tinch. Kama tinch. Kama tinch. Kama tinch. Kama tinch. Seven. Tapawas. 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 Eight. Nas was. Nas was. Nas was. Nas was. Nas was. Nas was. Nine. K katas. K katas. K katas. K katas. 10. Kaskik. 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 Power to numerals 1 through 10. Thank you for watching my video on the numerals 1 through 10 in the Powhatan language. There's going to be more videos in this series of learning the Powhatan language. So please subscribe and click that bell to make sure you get notifications right when they occur. All right, Wangapo. Wangapo means greetings or peace.
Indigenous peoples have deep ties to William and Mary's campus. The land was originally claimed by native populations, and prior to 1723, Indian boys attended residential school at the college's Wren building and later Brafferton. Now, in a space where Indigenous peoples were stripped of their cultural heritage, including language, this group of women has chosen William and Mary as a meaningful place to meet, to awaken what was once lost.
Unfortunately, through assimilation and the genocidal practices, both physical and paper genocide, our people in this area haven't spoken fluently in at least 200 years, I would say. So all we have left are, a few, maybe 1,000 or so words, if that.
Raven Brightwater Costello grew up on the Mattaponi Tribe Reservation in King William County. She's committed to advocating for preserving Indigenous heritage.
I think most of us can probably say maybe a short introduction, and Wingapo, hello, welcome, Nitapawak, my friends, kana, thank you, ana, goodbye, those sort of like basic words that you would use in like everyday language.
During meetings, Costello, along with Diana Gates and Young Brinson, who are cousins from the Nottoway tribe, research words and pronunciations as they start trying to put the puzzle of Virginia's Algonquin language back together.
The culture of Virginia has always been steeped in Algonquin culture, and I think that's why, we've been led to it. And so it's just cool that we are all coming together now to really lift this off the ground and get it started, because we're making moves, and I love it.
The group is in the beginning stages of language revitalization, and while they may never be fluent, they hope future generations will be.
Native children who are surrounded and enveloped in the warmth of their community and their culture, they're connected to their tribe through speaking their language. The rates for substance abuse, suicide, they go drastically down. High school graduation rates go drastically up.
Because Virginia tribes were colonized much earlier than those out west, Gates says reviving their language can feel isolating.
We were colonized in the early 1600s. We had a boarding school called the Brafferton, which is located here at William and Mary. And it's all of these sort of historical elements of stripping away piece by piece culture and language that, it's really healing for us to say, well, these parts of us aren't dead.
I feel like language transcends like the physical space. It even, it transcends into that spiritual place. When my time here is no longer and I join my ancestors in that spirit world, can I greet them and will they understand me? And that's a big part of why I do what I do, is I want that connection to them and I want to be able to speak their language.
Reporting for VPM News, I'm Kairis Manzanares.
The home of the Rappahannock Indian tribe is deep in the rural landscape of Indian Neck, Virginia, northeast of Richmond. It's a place so quiet you can actually hear the leaves rustle through the trees and the water coursing down a local stream. But now, that tranquility has given way to a steady, increasingly fervent call for recognition by the federal government. As tax-paying residents of Virginia, the Rappahannock Indians have been waging this battle since 1999.
It's our very birthright. You were born a certain way to a certain family with a certain lineage. Would you want to have that taken away from you?
The Rappahannock and other Native American tribes have gained recognition from the state, but not the federal government, and that's meant the tribes have been torn from key parts of their own history. The Rappahannock tribe and 5 others in the state of Virginia want the Smithsonian to return the remains of their ancestors, along with other historic tribal artifacts. But the Smithsonian is under no obligation to do so, or even reveal what's in its collection, unless the tribes are federally recognized. The Smithsonian acknowledges it has Native American remains from every state in the country. 1,800 sets of remains are from Virginia. The Rappahannock tribe wants them removed from their storage in government warehouses in the D.C. suburbs and brought to their homeland for a proper burial in this Rappahannock Indian cemetery,
where they can be revered and honored for the sacrifices that they've made for their people. And we can't do that if we don't have federal recognition.
Virginia's Indians have endured a turbulent history.
I grew up in the house with tribal leadership my entire life. I ate, slept, and breathed tribal affairs.
Now led by a modern chief, the first woman to head the Rappahannock since 1705, they are determined to reclaim what is theirs and add to the photographs and historic artifacts in their modest collection. In Indian Neck, Virginia, Andrea McCarran, WUSA 9.
For hundreds of years, Native Americans have fought the U.S. government for land and recognition. The federal government does not officially recognize the Rappahannock Tribe of Virginia, but as James Williams reports, the tribe has found a friend in the Army.
Mill Creek was once an important part of the Rappahannock tribe's daily life.
We ate like kings on the river, and we built our own houses, and we were able to stay warm and cool. And we had with us the wisdom of the ages.
Chief Ann Richardson says that wisdom told the Native Americans to protect their natural resources.
But when the English came, they thought they could teach us better how to live here, and they didn't take the wisdom that we had to offer them.
In an effort to be good neighbors and resurrect a friendship, Fort A.P. Hill officials invited members of the Rappahannock tribe to a ceremony honoring the tribe's cultural history. The Army restored an area of Mill Creek and posted an interpretive sign about the Indians who lived here.
It's a recognition that there are people with legitimate concerns about the environment, about the cultural resources that the Army is in charge of, the stewards of these resources, and that we take that seriously.
This is maybe a small first step in the direction of restoration of the land. And that's very important to us, to be able to preserve the various plants and animals that live on this land that has sustained our people here for 11,000 years.
Fort A.P. Hill will have more soldiers stationed there in the coming years thanks to the Base Realignment and Closure Commission. The addition of troops means a need for stricter stewardship of natural resources. That will no doubt mean more conversations between A.P. Hill and the Rappahannock. If Mill Creek is any indication, the Army can accomplish its mission while preserving the land that has provided life-sustaining resources for thousands of years. James Williams, Washington.
And the people in the tribe are ecstatic, even though a lot of them aren't here today. It means a lot. You know, a lot of the young people are talking about already coming over. We're already talking about plans of how we want to do things that, you know, it's going to help the environment and teach the young people about the river and the way of, you know, things used to be back in the day, and that's what we're trying to do. Not just our people. We want the community to be involved as well.
I understand that here, the Rappahannock tribe held ceremonies, made camp, fished, danced, and led their lives in balance and harmony with the wonderful nature we see all around us. Now I understand this to be the jewel of the Rappahannock.
Ultimately, our work would not have been successful without the active involvement of Chief Ann and tribal members. Their enthusiasm, support, and sharing provided the heart and soul of what the Indigenous Cultural Landscape approach sets out to accomplish.
You know, we're very fortunate to live in a place with so much beauty. Members of the Rappahannock tribe whose ancestors have lived here for thousands of years know this well. You'll see that this stretch of the Rappahannock River has amazingly changed little during the ensuing 400 years, and it makes it an ideal place to tell the story of the Rappahannock tribe, the river, its wildlife, and engage people in meaningful Chesapeake Trail experiences.
Father, we just thank you today for, I know the angels are celebrating in heaven, that after 350 years, our tribe has been returned to the river. That we can walk the lands of our ancestors and feel the spirit of the people that lived here, that worked here, and that worshiped you here.
dripping color breeze of tangerine. Some get subjective, the sun gets subjective. Deep in your mind right now. 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 Step outside, forgiveness and gratitude are alright. Wake up and breathe, go within. The blackout gives way to sparkling light. Impartiality. Step outside is your thinking, thought, mind, brain, creating problems just to solve them the same. I revolve around the baseline. Today's a day to reflect always and in all ways. Today's a day to reflect always and in all ways. Special request, no drum and bass. Fuck the trouble, we want drum and bass. No drama, we want drum and bass. We want drum and bass.
My name is Zach. I'm the founder of Inspire Clothing. We're here today at Indian Punch Bowl by the Rappahannock River in Fredericksburg, Virginia. This is a site that I come to often. It's a sacred ceremonial site for the peoples and for our ancestors. 500 years ago, our ancestors were come here to do ceremony and to practice medicine. This site is heavily, it's not maintained. It's fallen in disrepair. There's a lot of aspects of it that have been damaged. It's no longer maintained properly. But this is an important cultural and historic landmark, especially for our culture and our peoples. Today I'm here mainly because I've had an upsetting week, and whenever I'm upset, I like to come to spots like this to connect with the ancestors and to try and find my peace. So we've had a very eventful week with a lot of negative things, unfortunately. So I've been feeling a little angry and upset. And when I get this way, it's best for me to come out here and to try to retune myself and recharge with nature and things like that. Also, you know, as a modern-day Native American, especially with the mixed background with the European and Native side, you know, a lot of people don't know my mom is Native American, my dad's white, but he's also mixed Native as well. You know, I have this constant clash where I need to, you know, I'm trying to understand my place in the world. I'm trying to understand my history. I'm trying to understand how we got to this. And I'm trying to live close in connection with my ancestors. A lot of people overlook that. You know, it's important to understand how your ancestors lived and what kind of struggles and challenges they went through as a people, so that you can actually relate and as a modern day person and understand, like, you know, we kind of go through the same things, even though it's a little different. And so with all that being said, I came out here today mainly just to smoke some weed and chill, and also do some prayers. A lot of people need to understand Native American culture. There's aspects of our culture that's heavily misunderstood, and you know, there's a lot of things that are shared amongst tribal and tribal identities, but there's also things that are now just native by what we call pan-Indianism, the idea that as a displaced people and as a people whose culture has been attacked and disrupted, we have to rediscover things, we have to reconnect. And so sometimes we find ourselves working across tribal or ethnic identities. You know, Native American is a broad ethnic group. There's over 500 languages that were spoken on this continent prior to the arrival of the European. So, you know, it's not like when we talk about Native Americans, we have the larger aspect of things of our culture, but we also have the specific things of our culture. In Virginia, prior to colonization, there was 3 major language groups. You had the Siouan-speaking Manahoac peoples, you had the Cherokee in the southern part of the state, and then you had the Powhatan and other Algonquin-speaking tribes, who were mostly united under the leadership of Chief Powhatan. You know, in Fredericksburg alone, there was 3 native villages. That's actually why the city of Fredericksburg was built here along the Rappahannock River, because they noticed there was 3 villages. There was a lot of occupancy along the river. Those villages, the 2 I know off the top of my head was Hakasa, or Hasawaga, and then Shakakonia. There's also another 3rd village, but I can't remember it off the top of my head, unfortunately. We're near where Hakasa would have been, Hakasagwa. And this site here, like I said, the Indian Punch Bowl was an important site here along the Rappahannock River. One big aspect of Native culture that everyone must understand is tobacco. Tobacco, sacred tobacco, is it's not a drug, it's not recreational, it's a medicine. You know, we smoke tobacco in a ceremonial context. We don't, you know, the idea of cigarettes and having to smoke a cigarette before and after things, that's a colonized commodity aspect viewpoint of tobacco. The ancestors smoked tobacco because we believed that it had healing properties that had to do with the blood and with healing like colds and flus and stuff like that. But we also knew that as we smoked sacred tobacco, as the smoke went up to the sky, it's carrying our prayers and our wishes and our dreams to the Creator up in the sky. That's what it's about, for real. And so I try to teach all the kids out here with Inspire, because, you know, Inspire, you know, we're a street clothing brand, we're weed influencers, we're all that, but at the end of the day, we're a Native American company. So I try to teach the wisdom of our ancestors to the kids so that they can understand. And so a big part of our culture at Inspire is tobacco, but not smoking cigarettes per se, but the sacred and ceremonial use of tobacco. So we'll smoke tobacco out of the bowl, and we already did before we started filming, but we also will take tobacco occasionally and we'll throw it over our shoulders for a blessing. This is Virginia lemon cured tobacco, so it's very strong. It's all natural, there's no additives. So this is pretty close to what the ancestors would have smoked. That's why I like to order it from whole leaf tobacco. Alright, I crumble a little bit in my hand, and we'll take it, take a moment of reflection, and you throw it over the shoulder. I'm going to put some tobacco in the punch bowl for the ancestry. Another important aspect of the culture is not just tobacco, but it's cornmeal. This is fresh ground cornmeal. It's been prayed over, so this is technically the bag. We don't cook with this bag. We use it for primarily for prayer. I have a separate bag that I cook with for making tortillas and stuff like that. But you know, corn is sacred. It's actually a big part of Native culture. And in the East Coast complex, all the tribes, we heavily cultivated corn, squash, and other plants, but corn was a mainstay crop. Corn is used in almost all ceremony and ritual. It's important, it's sacred. So I'm going to take a little bit of corn as well and throw it over the shoulder and put some in the punch bowl for the ancestors. We also noticed when we came here that there was a dead snake chopped in half by some asshole right behind the punch bowl. I'm going to throw some cornmeal over the snake just for blessing, and also so the ants and other insects can start decomposing it faster. I feel bad for the snake. Oh. It doesn't even look like it was a poisonous snake. It looks like it was a regular ass black snake. Leave those alone, guys, for real. We'll come out here occasionally to smoke and to kind of just find our zen, like I said, connect with the ancestors, try to understand them and their way of life a lot easier. You know, as a Native American, we have a displaced culture, so you need to understand that, especially with the mixed racial aspect things. Our culture has always, for the majority, been passed down through word of mouth, through an oral tradition. You learn from the elders, they teach you, we pass it on to your kids. But because of the oppressive colonialization and systematic racism of early colonial America, as well as, you know, even into today, honestly, a lot of our culture has been destroyed, hidden. We've been separated from our elders, and we've even lost our language and some of our customs. Even the fact that I'm speaking English right now is a testament to this. You know, my ancestors didn't speak English. They spoke Algonquin. I don't even know Algonquin. I know only a few words. So it's sad. It makes it's something to reflect upon. Especially when you see other cultures like Chinese people, Indian, Middle Eastern, Jewish, whatever, they have their culture. They can reconnect. They can, you know, we don't have that because of systematic laws that were put in place to prevent us from speaking our language, wearing our clothing, and practicing our culture. So that's a big issue, and that's actually caused generational trauma and issues. So even today, we have people who are lost in their identity, lost in trying to figure out who they are and trying to understand where we're going in the future. That's actually a big issue in why drugs and crime and violence in Fredericksburg, whether the elders, you know, whether the powers that be realize that or not, a lot of these kids out here are lost. And it's not because of bad parenting or something like that. It has to go with the backbone of having culture. I'm a firm proponent of the idea that culture is a compass and that it guides you in life. If you don't have culture, you have no compass, you have no ethics, you have no code. So it's important that we maintain our culture and try to preserve it to the best of our ability, or revive it in certain ways, so that we can prevent these kind of things from happening to our people. We're not gone, we're not extinct, we're still here. A lot of white people and black people are Native American and don't even know it, and stuff like that. And I'm also gonna, you know, I'm mixed race. A lot of people assume I'm white, but my mom, like I said, is a person of color. When you have that kind of mixed racial background, it can be confusing at times, you know, what your identity is, who you are. And then even when you have other racial groups or powers above you telling you you're white, or you're not Native American, or this is not what it is. And that can add more to the confusion. I don't believe, you know, for me, being Native American isn't about what your skin tone is or how pure-blooded you are. It's about the culture, you know, and going back to the whole idea of genetics and stuff, Native Americans and black people are the only people in the world who are described in law, legally, by terms of their blood purity. And the only other situations where this occurs legally is with the discussion of livestock. So black people and Native Americans, especially with like the one-drop rules from segregation times and Jim Crow, to even like in the Constitution, the black people are only 3/4 of a regular person for the terms of census and stuff like that. This is all about how this goes back into the reflection that when the Christians and the Europeans came here, they viewed us not even as actual people or equals. They viewed us as property or as animals, you know, and we still fight that today. We still fight that today. That's why a lot of times Native culture and practices are often looked down upon. You know, we smoke mad weed, we smoke mad shit. You see us smoking all the time, the peace pipe. Everyone that smoke, like, we're not out here hurting no one, you know what I'm saying? That's part of our culture. We smoke. You know what I'm saying? There's no one ever bats an eye over a cigarette, but if you pull out a pipe to smoke, suddenly it's weird. But that's a stigma that, you know, is introduced from, you know, it wasn't like this around the turn of the century. In the 1900s, everyone smoked. People smoked weed openly in the 1900s before the drug war. So, you know, riddle me that. It's just these things that we're fighting constantly. So I came out here today, like I said, to educate people about this and to show them this site and to do prayers and blessing, because this is what really matters. None of the other shit matters, yo. Money doesn't matter. Bitches doesn't matter. Power and respect, you know, what really matters is the culture we practice and how we view the world. And once again, Native Americans lived in tune with the environment. When you talk about climate change and all these things, we lived very in tune with our environment. So, and that only comes because we had a culture that respected nature and tried to learn from nature. You know, we're out here barefoot today. We're not afraid. You know what I'm saying? We're just trying to reconnect. But I urge everyone to look into their history and try to rediscover their roots and understand where they come from, and to take some of these things we said to heart today. That's all I got, really. But go inspire, team inspire. Yeah.
Of all the people buried here in historic Hollywood Cemetery, including presidents, generals, and statesmen, few have had the impact of Dr. Walter Plecker. His stormy legacy continues today.
My parents always made sure that we knew the story about what Walter Plecker had done and how it had affected our people.
Plecker was a menace to Virginia Indians over many years.
Well, Dr. Plecker was convinced that there was a need to purify the white race. He thought that he was preserving the Commonwealth of Virginia, that he was maintaining the United States of America, and most importantly to him, that he was protecting the white race.
For 34 years, starting in 1912, Dr. Plecker was the director of the state's Bureau of Vital Statistics, carefully compiling birth and death records. Anyone who had one drop of other than white blood was listed as colored. They were mongrels, in his view. Plecker was relentless. With great energy, he compiled lists and wrote letters chastising whites who applied for marriage licenses with those Plecker thought were impure.
There's no question that Plecker was incredibly aggressive about using the few prerogatives the law gave him to register people. He used those prerogatives really to threaten people, to coerce them. Dr. Plecker once boasted that he had a list of people by race that rivaled that list that was kept by Hitler of the Jews.
Virginia Indians particularly felt his wrath. Quote, like rats when you're not watching, he wrote, they've been sneaking in their birth certificates through their own midwives.
You know, we couldn't claim we were Indian. It was against the law to say we were Indian. What do we claim? You know, we're not black and we're not white.
That whole idea that you are not what you believe yourself to be.
Whole groups of people who formerly were recognized among the tribes of Virginia simply disappeared from the records. They were no longer considered to be Native Americans or Indians, as they were called. Their children were not recognized as members of the tribes, and they're living with that legacy right now.
Plecker and his many supporters believed not only that races should never intermarry, they shouldn't even mingle. Strict segregation would last for generations. Blacks had to have their own schools and neighborhoods. So did Indians.
This was the schoolhouse, and for a long time, up until 1908, the church.
We blame Plecker, but he gave it to a very hungry audience. They ate it up.
Indeed, Plecker was seen as a heroic figure in an era when genetic engineering was becoming mainstream. The eugenics movement was white supremacy cloaked in science. Its supporters were many and influential, from leading academics at University of Virginia to wealthy industrialists.
We have to remember that in the 1920s, most people lived on farms. So people knew about livestock. They knew about growing corn. They knew about culling the herd and getting rid of the ones that weren't any good and keeping the ones that were the most sound. And so these ideas of animal husbandry were useful to people making biological arguments about society.
There was a lot of cross-pollination between Virginia's movement and Adolf Hitler's quest for a master race. The Richmond Times-Dispatch editorialized in 1924 that racial intermingling would ruin the white man. Quote, once a drop of inferior blood gets in his veins, he descends lower and lower in the mongrel scale. That was the year the General Assembly passed the Racial Integrity Act, narrowly defining race and making it illegal for whites to marry anyone of any other race. Plecker wrote to the governors of the rest of the states, urging them to pass similar laws to save the white race.
We have a law. There's a sterilization law that's passed in Virginia, upheld later in the United States Supreme Court, allowing some 60,000 plus people to be sterilized in institutions, 32 states all over the country.
Well, we're trying to help them, Alice, and you too. Have your entire family sterilized.
The Racial Integrity Act, which Plecker pushed, stood until 1967, when the appropriately named Loving case about an interracial couple led to a U.S. Supreme Court reversal. But the damage to Virginia's Indian tribes continues. There are more than 560 federally recognized Indian tribes in the country, but none of Virginia's tribes, the ones that helped the settlers survive, have that crucial recognition, because Walter Plecker did everything he could to destroy evidence of their existence.
I don't know that you can ever atone for the bad things that have been done, and we are people who believe in forgiveness and humanity and brotherhood, and so let's make today a new day.
In less than a century, what Dr. Plecker feared the most has come to pass.
I'm sure that Dr. Plecker would be shocked to walk through a city like Washington, D.C., or for that matter, downtown Richmond, and see that there were people of different races walking hand in hand. It wasn't the world that he looked forward to. He really looked forward to a very different, much more restricted world.
You? Oh, okay. That's my daughter.
You can see it. Again, made by one of our Chickahominy sisters.
Spirit of togetherness. I graciously accept the tribute that you presented today.
What it do?
Motherfucker, this tiny ass shit. I'm thinking. Yeah,
say that one more time.
You're a naked cat now.
What was that? How'd you get this? How'd you get this cat?
I chased it down on barefoot, man. It was loose in Caroline County. I grabbed it by the tail, whipped it like a whip. It was a naked cat, man.
What?
Took all the fur off.
Yo, hippo spawn? What the fuck? You don't have a picture of him? Oh, what the fuck?
Dude, he's deer. You gotta respect the nature. Skadliadnush. What y'all know about that? Yeah, it really be like that. The cool thing about having an office by the Rappahannock River in downtown Fredericksburg is that bald eagles just chill in my backyard every day. They are so beautiful. And they are huge. Like it looks like I'm far away from them, but really I'm really just like this far. But they're over there. Y'all see it? But look how big they are. Wow.
What do you think on the situation of this thing? What do you like? I like it. Yeah. Well, it kind of twisted a little bit, the branch, but that's okay. It's kind of angled a little bit.
The red thing.
All right, all right.
He's the muscles. He's like two people in one.
Down.
Really?
1, 2, 3. Towards you. You guys don't know how to plant a tree. I know how to plant a tree. Fredericksburg. Beautiful day. Beautiful day.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Zach. I'm the founder and creative director of Inspire. Today we're at the Rappahannock River, on the side of the river where Gary Melcher's Belmont is. I wanted to come out here and show y'all something because the river is actually very, very low right now, so you can actually cross into the middle of the river where normally it's covered with water. And as you can see here, I wanted to show y'all some Native American petroglyphs. So the Rappahannock River was a site of a village known as Hakasad, and there was also another location further upriver. We're a little bit downstream from where the Indian Punch Bowl was, but as you can see, there's still remnants of our culture here in the river today. Normally this would be covered in water. The area we're in, it'd be about up to here with water. So normally people don't see this, but as you can clearly see, this is a petroglyph. So they would carve into the rock. As you can feel here, it's been carved in and weathered pretty well, but it still stands out very nicely. It's just a very simple design. It depicts a snake and the water. Not really sure what it means. Couldn't really guess. I don't know if that's religious or ceremonial or what, but really cool. We're actually going to try and see if we can find some more because there's supposed to be a few more out here. One thing I will point out is that there's sacred morning glory growing right here next to the rock, which I think is pretty cool. Normally you don't see it out here in the river, so really cool stuff. Check it out.
Yo, what's up everyone? I woke up this morning and I felt like shit and I have the cold. And I have like, my nose is like Niagara Falls right now. It sucks. So I'm basically about to go harvest some mullein, which is what I usually do when I'm sick. And I'm going to show you all that process and teach y'all how to make mullein tea, which is really good for when you have the cold and flu. So check it out.
What's up everyone? I'm on the side of a busy ass roadway right now. Alright, I managed to find the mullein that we were looking for. You know, as you can see, we're right next to a busy ass road. There's a bunch of cars driving by. This is where mullein likes to grow. Mullein likes to grow in disturbed soil. So areas that are next to roads, construction sites, mountain hillsides, etc. I like to, as you can see, we found a few rosettes here. I'm about to forage from these rosettes. Alright? There's a lot of trash and stuff in the area and we are next to the road, so I'm going to try and go pick from up the hill. And I'm also going to look for dark green or light green to dark green leaves that are clean for the most part because we're making tea out of it, and like I said, I'm just trying to save money and this is something you can forage on the side. Alright, most people probably wouldn't forage from a spot like this being right next to the road, but in this case, we should be fine. So, we're just using plastic bags. You can get a basket or plastic bags and this should work. So right here you can see the rosette. There's a few leaves. We're just going to pull a few of the fresh green leaves. And that's all we need. And I'm going to clean them when we get back to the spot, so it shouldn't be a problem. One thing about mullein that makes it very unique is it's fuzzy. It's like a carpet. This is called mucilage, and this is what makes it useful for the cold and flu, is it's going to knock the fine hairs here, are going to knock all the mucus off of your mucous membranes and help you expel that. So that's why mullein's useful for the cold and flu as an expectorant. So we're just going to grab some leaves there. So that's about all we really need, and I'm going to rinse these leaves off once we get back to my spot. And I'm going to bake them in the oven, air dry them basically, and then we'll be able to crumble them up into the perfect texture for tea, and you'll be able to make tea from that. Boom. What's up everyone? So we're back at the office now, and I'm about to process the leaves that we collected the other day. As you can see, this is pretty much everything that we got. I'm going to wash the leaves, and then I'm going to let them air dry, and then we're going to put them at a very low temperature in my air fryer / oven. That's going to allow them to dry to the point where we can easily crumble them into the tea leaf. So
We're gonna do that right now. Alright, so I got the leaves hand washed, and I removed most of the dirt and stuff from them. And so I'm kind of letting them kind of air dry in the sun here real quick before I put them in the oven, so that the water droplets heating up doesn't cause damage to the plant right away. Just want to gradually heat it up so it dries out. So that's what we're doing right now. So I got the leaves now placed in the air fryer. We have it set to 350 degrees, and I'm gonna air fry it for about 2 to 3, 4 minutes kind of deal, until the leaves are gently dry and I can crumble them and finish the process myself. So I'm gonna put them back in there and then finish. It's not weed you're looking at, that's the mullein. So I finished drying it in the air fryer, and basically it got to the consistency where I was able to just take the leaves and crumble it up directly, and this is now pretty much ready to use. So I'm going to put it in one of these mason jars. So that's how easy it is to go forage your own mullein and prepare it yourself. So rock and roll. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out. Peace out. My ass. My fat ass. Stupid shit.
What's up, everyone? We're here at the bend of the Rappahannock River near Fredericksburg, Virginia, and we're where the historic fishing village of Hakasad would have been. This is a Manahoac village that existed around the time that John Smith and all of them charted and mapped out these areas and came up the river. As you can see behind me, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. We're actually on top of a cliff face, so right here the river bends because it's forced to hit these rocks, and then so it straightens out along this ridge line that exists here behind Central Park, what is today Central Park. So I'm over here. We're near River Road. It's in the distance. There's Mott's Reservoir off in the distance and stuff like that. I'm on the edge of the cliff, so I'm watching my balance because I get a little, unfooted here. But this is beautiful. We come out here and we smoke at spots like this because it allows us to connect with the ancestors. Hundreds of years ago to thousands of years ago, because they only recently disoccupied this land 350 years ago or so. But for, at least a solid 1,000 years, or at least since the last ice age, they were chilling out here. This was a fishing community. They built fishing weirs, they left petroglyphs, and as you can see here, they would have occupied the whole crescent of the bend here. So this, there's some private properties over here, some houses on River Road in the city of Fredericksburg. You can actually Google this information. They've done some archaeological work. They found pottery. They found remnants of the village site. But we come here to this cliffside because they most definitely came to this cliff, and they would have appreciated this vista just like we are right now. And we are able to connect with the ancestors by sitting here and just appreciating the beauty that's apparent before us. You know what I'm saying? So, this is what it's all about. I encourage everyone to try and find this spot and visit it. Make sure you always practice leave no trace values. Don't, leave trash and litter and stuff like that. And just, come out here and enjoy this view. We ate a bunch of pawpaws on the way here. It was dope. Check us out.
people of Virginia are still here. We have survived 400 years of European contact, and actually more than 400 years, because ever since Columbus found America, Europeans have been coming here, so we've even survived for that long. VITAL is an organization working for federal recognition for 6 tribes. And those 6 tribes are the Chickahominy tribe, Eastern Chickahominy tribe. We have the Monacan, Rappahannock, Nansemond, and then the Upper Mattaponi tribe. We're very hopeful that this year might be the year that we're successful. This marks our 10th year. We started in May of 1999. All indications are that things are very positive this year, and we're very hopeful that this will be the year that we finally get through the process and are officially recognized by the federal government.